So let's say that you decorate an event and you come back and your decorations are damaged. Let's say that you come back to the event and your decorations aren't there. Somebody stole them. In the beginning of your decorating business, a lot of times we're just focused on decorating. We get so excited. We just want the opportunity to decorate for a client. Sometimes you can get so excited that you skip having your client sign a contract. In this video, I want to give you 3 reasons why you should always have the client sign a contract. And make sure you stay tuned to the 3rd reason because that one is the most important. But first, before we get into it, let me formally introduce myself. My name is Lanielle Kuzar, and I am the owner of Yes Event Academy. I teach people just like you, people who love to decorate events. I teach them how to start a business and start booking clients. So the thing is, without a contract, if something was damaged, it's really hard to go back to the client and say, hey, you have to pay me for this because they didn't sign anything. And some clients, if not most clients, will come back and say, I didn't damage that. That was damaged before it came here. I didn't do that. There's clients who will make you prove that it was them who damaged it, right? So if you don't have pictures, if you don't have evidence, then it's literally their word against yours. Now, let's say you come back to the event and you can't find all of your decorations. So I have had that happen to me. I decorated for a bridal shower once and I came back and I couldn't find all of my floral centerpieces. So I was looking and looking and looking around the room and I couldn't find it. So eventually I had to say something to my client because those centerpieces were not for her to keep, right? It was in our contract that those centerpieces were to be returned at the end of the event. And thank goodness her aunt actually found the centerpiece. So that was really good because if we didn't find that centerpiece, I was going to have to charge my client for it. So that's the thing. When you have your client signing a contract and they understand that they have entered into a legal agreement with you, they are very careful. They're more careful about your decorations. So your contract should detail out what happens in the event of damage to your decorations, what happens in the event of someone stealing your decorations. It should be very clear that your decorations should be returned to you in the same way that you drop them off. But your contract doesn't just cover damages. It also covers your payment policy. So when your client signs a contract, they are agreeing to pay you. When clients are signing your contract, they're agreeing to your payment terms, but they're also agreeing to your payment policies. So this is so important if you have a non-refundable anything. So if there's anything that you're offering to your client and you tell them this is non-refundable, if you don't put that in a contract, then they'll expect a refund. They're also agreeing to your payment methods. So for me, I do not accept cash, period. I don't accept cash, period. So there have been times where clients have offered to pay me in cash on the day of their event. No, thank you. No, thank you. I do not do that because on the day of the event, there's always so much going on, especially if I'm decorating a wedding, right? The bride and the groom, they're getting ready. Their guests are getting ready, right? Everybody's getting ready. I don't want to have to be the person to run after them and say, hey, can you pay me? So I don't accept cash at all. When my clients are signing my contract, they are agreeing to pay me with some form of electronic payment. That's the reason why it's so good for you to have a contract. When you don't have a contract, people think they can pay you however they want, whenever they want. And then you're stuck in a situation where you may have purchased decorations for an event and you're still waiting to get paid. Or let's say, here's the thing, I don't want to I don't want to scare you, but here's the thing. Sometimes people can pay on a credit card and then dispute the charge later. I have had that happen to me. So that's another reason why it is so important to have a contract, because if they dispute the charge later, saying that they weren't satisfied or whatever, you can literally make up any reason to dispute a charge off of a credit card, right? So you have your contract and you're able to provide that contract to the credit card company so they can see what they agreed to. But the third thing that I want to talk about is there are legal terms that go into your contract that protect you in the case of an emergency. So let's say that something happens, right? Let's say that there's an emergency, a family emergency. Let's say that there's extremely bad weather, right? There's a hurricane, there's a bad snowstorm, right? There's something that happens that's outside of your control. So you want to have these legal terms and these legal clauses in your contract to protect you. So if something happens that's outside of your control, let's say that you're going to set up an event and the street that you need to go down in order to get to the event venue, let's say it's blocked off because of some sort of criminal activity. So let's say the police have the whole block blocked off and you can't get in, right? So if there's something that happens that's outside of your control, you want to have these legal clauses and these legal terms in your contract so that you're released from liability, so that you are not on the hook to still decorate under these terms. You need to have a clause in your contract that says, if something happens outside of your control, this is how you're going to handle it. This is what the client's agreeing to, right? So those terms are already in your contract. When the client signs, it releases your liability. Now, you may be asking, why is that so important? Because I told you number 3 was the most important reason for you to have a contract. You may think that the payment terms are the most important part. Here's the thing. I wrote my own contract. When I first started my business, I wrote my own contract. I just Googled a bunch of different contracts and then I came up with my own. Then I had my cousin who's an event planner, I had her review it. And I said, hey, does this look good to you? She's like, yeah, sure. She added a little bit of details, but I created it myself. I know some of you guys may be going on Etsy and buying a $5 contract template and creating your own. Here's the thing. A few years later, I actually worked with a lawyer to review my contract. And when she reviewed my contract, she told me, I did not have really anything covered in my contract from a legal perspective. There were so many holes and gaps in my contract. It would have been very easy for me to be sued, right? It would have been really easy for someone to sue me and win, because my contract really did not cover what it needed to cover from a legal standpoint. This is the reason why it's so important to have your contract legally reviewed by a lawyer. So I have had my contract reviewed 3 times by 2 different lawyers in my state. And for me, what I do with my students is I give them a contract template to work with. So I actually give my students 4 different contract templates, because the thing is that you need a contract depending on the situation. So it depends on what you're providing, what service you're providing to your clients. It depends on that as to what contract they should sign. So if you're offering event planning services, that's one contract. If you're offering event decorating services, that's one contract. If you're doing event rentals, that's one contract. If you're doing balloon decorations, that's one contract. If you're doing event design, that's one contract, right? So it really just depends on what service that you're offering. It's best to come up with a contract for each service. That way you're covered. But I always cringe when I hear people say that they're decorating an event without a contract. I completely understand. I have been there before when you get super excited. You just want to decorate the event, so you skip all the formalities. Every single time I have done that, I have regretted that. Usually, whenever I skip, well, in the beginning of my business, because I don't do that anymore, but in the beginning of my business, whenever I would skip past the contract point and I would just go to, oh, well, just pay me a deposit, right? Whenever I used to take signing a contract lightly, usually I would always regret it. So your contract is going to protect you. It's going to protect your client. That's the thing. Like when we ask our clients to sign a contract, it's an agreement to make sure that we're both on the same page. So it protects you, but it also protects the client because your contract should really detail out what you're going to be providing to them. So if you do not deliver, then they have a legal case against you because you agreed to deliver something to them that they didn't get. Now, if you are interested in my contract templates, all you have to do is just head over to my website and sign up for my mentorship program. So for me, it was very important to give my students something to work with. Now, my contract templates have been reviewed by 2 different lawyers, so I already know I'm giving them a good contract template. I always recommend to my students that they have the contract template reviewed by a lawyer in their state. This is so important because every state has different laws. So you have to make sure that you're using legal terms that fit with your state laws. But I wanted to give my students something to start off with. I didn't want them to have to be like me, making up something and then it didn't even cover me legally, right? So if you are interested, that's another perk of my mentorship program. I give them 4 different contract templates to start from, and I'm looking into adding 2 more. I want to add another one for Christmas tree decorating, and I want to add another one for event design. All right, so I hope I have convinced you to have a contract before you decorate your clients' events. And please, 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 please do not go on Etsy and spend $5 on a contract template. When it comes to your contract templates, you want to invest in a template from someone who has had it legally reviewed, or you want to get it from a lawyer. This is one of the most important ways to protect your business. In my next video, I'm going to go over 5 ways to protect your event decorating business. I understand that when you start your business, you just want to start decorating. You just want to start booking clients. But before you do that, I would highly recommend that you protect your business. So in the next video, I am going to get into 5 ways that you can protect your business. And a contract is one of them. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you in my next video.